Hey everyone, Steve from Backcountry Gallery here. This time around, I'm going to share my top 10 secret Nikon shortcuts. Okay, maybe they're not all secret, but I'll tell you, a lot of people don't know these, and I'm willing to bet that you know one or two of these, but maybe not all of these. So you're going to have to watch a video. Let me know in the comments how many of these you actually knew. So this is mostly for Nikon mirrorless, although some of this does cross over for DSLRs. So if you're a DSLR shooter, it's probably okay to watch this video too. But for mirrorless shooters, a definite must watch. In addition, keep in mind that not every single mirrorless camera that Nikon makes is going to support every single thing that I'm going to show you. So if your camera doesn't do it, talk to Nikon about it. Tell them you need a firmware update. But for the most part, most of these mirrorless cameras are going to do everything that I'm about to show you. So let's dive in with our first one, auto ISO toggle. So the first tip I want to show you is toggling your auto ISO on and off without going into the menu. Because, obviously you can go into the menu and go in the photo shooting menu, and it's kind of a pain in the butt because you have to go all the way down to ISO settings and then go in here, find auto ISO, turn it on or off over here in this menu. But what if I told you there's a much faster way to do that? And it's very, very simple. All you have to do is press the ISO button down and hold it. And as you're holding it, rotate the front dial instead of the rear, and that will turn auto ISO on and off. If you notice, every click I'm doing here, I'm toggling auto ISO on or off. This is super handy if you're like me and you shoot manual with auto ISO, because sometimes we want to go full manual, right? And instead of diving through the menu, all I have to do is press the ISO button, give it one little click over, and I'm suddenly in full manual ISO. If I want to go back to auto ISO, once again, just press the ISO button down, turn the wheel one little click, and I'm back to auto ISO. And of course, you can use this with other things besides manual with auto ISO if you're using aperture priority with auto ISO or whatever, but just a really quick, handy way to toggle that on and off. The delete trick. So tell me if this sounds familiar. You go out for a day of shooting and you get out there first thing in the morning, and right in front of you, immediately almost, you get this brilliant series of images. And you're scrolling through the back of the camera, you're looking at them, you're patting yourself on the back because you did such a great job. And then you go one image too far and you realize you forgot to format the card. And there are a ton of other images. In fact, there's so many images on it, you don't really have much space left on that card. And now you have a problem because, you have this whole day of shooting in front of you and you want to make sure that you have that space on the memory card. What do? Do you have to delete them all individually? Do you have to dig out another card? Nothing like that at all. There is a little known solution that will save the day. Let me show you how to do it. So what we're going to do in a situation like that is we're going to go to the menu and we're going to go to our playback menu on our camera, and we're looking for the delete menu on the playback menu. We're going to give that a click, and we're going to go down to date. It says picture shot on selected dates. We're going to give that a click, and you're going to get a list of all the different dates for all the photos that are on that memory card. Now in this case I have two, and maybe I just want the one at the top there, the older ones. So I'm going to hit the right side of the multi-selector. Well, that's selected to select, to put a little check box there, little check mark in the box there. And then when I hit OK, it's going to delete those. Now, if you have multiple dates, you're going to have to do multiple check boxes there, but obviously you don't want to delete the ones that you just shot. So in this case, it would just be this one date. I would hit the OK button and it will ask me if I want to delete them. I would tell it yes. And just like that, my memory card is freed up and I have all of the images from that morning shoot plus all the space I need for the rest of the day. Change custom AF area sizes on the fly. Okay, so I love this one and not a lot of people know about this one. So let me show you how this normally works. Then I'll show you the shortcut. So let's say you're in your custom AF area mode and you want to resize that to something else. Most people would do this. They go to the menu and they would go over the photo shooting menu and they go all the way down to AF area mode. Then they'd have to select their custom area. Then they'd have to go in here and then they'd have to resize it. That is a lot of work. What if I told you there's an easier way and you can do it while you're looking at the AF area mode in the viewfinder, totally do it on the fly? You absolutely can. Let me show you how. So in order to do this, what you're going to need is some button on your camera programmed for focus mode / AF area mode. Now by default, the Z8 and Z9 have this little button down here by the lens mount. That one is already assigned for that. So all you have to do, you can use this button to do it. You can assign pretty much any button for it. Let me show you what the function for that looks like. So I'm going to go to the menu, controls, and this is a custom setting menu, controls. We're going to go to custom controls shooting. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick whichever button we want here, okay? Normally, this isn't a long list. I'm going to use the focus mode button for mine on this camera, but this is what the function you're looking for. You're looking for the focus mode / AF area mode. It's only going to work if the button is assigned to that. It's not going to work if the button is assigned to like cycle AF areas. A lot of people think it works with that. It doesn't. Cycle AF areas is still going to work if you have this assigned. Don't worry about that. But in order for you to do this little trick, you need a button that's assigned to this. So, and most of the time, this is going to be a part of a much, much longer list. This is just this little button here on the side. Doesn't have a lot of functions there. So let's go ahead and give that a click. And again, pretty much almost all the buttons supported, so whatever you want to use. So let me show you how this works. The first thing you got to know is you have to be in one of the custom AF areas. If you're in like wide, small, not going to work. You have to be in C1 or C2. So in this case, I'm already in C1. And all we're going to do as we're looking through the viewfinder is hold that button down. See, I'm just holding this button down. This is the assigned button. And I'm going to use my multi-selector or joystick, and I can resize these right on the fly. Look at that. I can resize it to whatever I want. I go to single point, do a long horizontal bar. Whatever you need to do, you can make it happen just by holding that and looking through the viewfinder. It is super handy, and it's kind of a game changer in the field. If you're using one of those custom AF area modes and it's too small, too wide, too long, whatever, you can just hold that button down and make that change right through the viewfinder. Very, very handy. I hope you find that helpful. Double tap to zoom. Another handy trick that a lot of Nikon shooters don't realize is that when you're looking at a photo on the back of the monitor here, if you double tap that, you can zoom right into 100%. So that's pretty cool. You double tap again and it goes back out. Of course, you have to have touch functions on in the setup menu. So if yours isn't doing it, check that setting. Another thing people don't realize is that if you want to check sharpness, so let's say I have this little cat's eye right here. If I want to check sharpness from shot to shot to shot, if I took a burst, I can do that by simply rotating my rear command dial. And every click will bring me to that same position in the photo as the previous shot. So I'm able to go through shot by shot by shot and double check how sharp that eye is. So it's really, really handy. So hopefully that's a couple of things there. Most Nikon shooters should know that one, but in case you don't, you have a new tool in your toolbox. 2-button format. Here's one for the Z8 and Z9 shooters, and every one of you should know this by now, but a lot of people don't. I find in my workshops, people don't realize this is a thing. You can actually bring up the format menu with a 2-button press. So we press the delete key on the back of the camera right here, and simultaneously we press the ISO button. And when we do that, the format menu comes up and allows you to format your card. Again, just a real quick tip there, but a lot of people don't realize that you can do that. They never really notice that on there. So next time you need to format your card, give that a try. Before we get to the next tip, I did want to mention that if you're enjoying this kind of video and learning all these tips and tricks and techniques, make sure you check out my ebooks. I have one for the Z6 III, one for the Z8 and Z9. I have one for the Nikon autofocus system itself, for the mirrorless and DSLR cameras. So make sure you check those out. If you think this video is good, wait till you see those books. This video is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what you'll find contained in those pages. So make sure you check them out. I absolutely know you're going to love them, and it'll really help you get the most from your camera. Pre-capture trick. So if you're a Nikon shooter using pre-capture, right now that's like Z8, Z9, Z6 III for sure, all those cameras have it. You know that you have to shoot JPEGs. So if you're like most wildlife photographers, though, you probably shoot RAW all the time and only use JPEGs for pre-capture. If that's the case, if you line up with that kind of paradigm, let me tell you, I have a shortcut for you. Because what I see people doing is trying to go in the pre-capture menu, turn it on and off each time, and you don't have to do that. Instead, we'll use frame rate to turn pre-capture on and off. Let me show you. Let's set this up. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the menu, and we're going to go over to the custom setting menu, and shooting and display. Going to give that a click, and we're going to go down to pre-capture release options, and we're going to give that a click as well. So first, we're going to go to pre-release burst, and we have some options here. If it's off, that means that nothing's working. It's not working. Pre-capture is not going to work. Then you have 0.3, 0.5, and 1 second worth of pre-capture. So that's how long it's going to buffer those images. For most people, I recommend 0.3 seconds. It takes about 1/4 of a second for us to react to stimuli. So if you're at 0.3 seconds, it should work for most people. So if you find that that's a little too short, go to 0.5 seconds, but I'm going to select 0.3. Notice I am not turning it off. It's going to be on all the time now. For post-release burst, always set that to max. There we go. Now we're just going to leave that. We're going to leave that turned on forever. So here's the thing. If the only time we're using JPEGs is for pre-capture, all we have to do is leave it on all the time, because if we're shooting RAW, it's not going to go into pre-capture mode. We don't have to worry about it. In fact, if you look at the screen here, you can see that pre-capture is not on at the moment. So what we're going to do instead is when we're ready to use pre-capture, we're going to go to one of those high-speed capture frame rates, the HSFC ones, the ones that begin with the letter C. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to press my drive button up here at the top. And right now you can see I am in high 20. But if I go over here where it says C15, C30, C60, 120, any of these C options, I'm going to go into JPEG mode. That's going to force JPEGs. And then suddenly pre-capture is going to turn on. Check it out. So I'm going to go to C30. And now when I press down, you can see up in the corner there that pre-capture is indeed on. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you're looking in the viewfinder, pre-capture will be at the bottom rather than where you see it here on this screen capture here. This is taking off the live view feed on the back of the camera. But you can see that because I am in C30, I have pre-capture. Now, if I go back, shut that off, go back to continuous high, you'll notice that pre-capture thing is gone. So I go back to C15, there it is. Go back to regular RAW, it's gone. So all you have to do to get in and out of pre-capture mode then is to switch from those C modes, those C frame rate modes, back to your normal ones. And as soon as you go back to your normal ones, camera will switch back to RAW and pre-capture will automatically shut itself off. So just a quick side note for my Z9 users out there, it doesn't work quite the same way with the Z9. In order to get access to those C options there with the drive mode button up here, you need to set your drive dial to this little drive mode icon here at the very end. And then when you press the drive mode button here, you'll have all of your different release modes, C30, 15, and then of course your normal RAW shooting stuff, continuous low, continuous high, etc. But otherwise, if it's just too like something like high over here and you press that drive mode button, you can do it, but you're not going to get those C options, so this whole thing isn't going to work. So you need to make sure that that's set like that. iMenu trick. Okay, so let's talk about the way most people use the iMenu, right? You press the iMenu, you make your selection here, you go around, figure out which one you want, hit OK, and then you go through, make your selection here, hit OK again, half press the shutter release to get back to shooting. It's a lot of steps, and I think it's one of the reasons people don't use the iMenu that much. Let me show you a faster way. So we're going to press the iMenu, and we're going to go to the one we want to mess with. Let's just use AF area mode right now. So what I'm going to do is instead of pressing the OK button and going through all the steps that I just showed you, instead, I'm just going to turn either the front or rear command dial here. And as you can see, I can change anything I want. I can go to bird mode here. I can change my AF area mode, then a half press, and that stuff is all set in and ready to go for me. And you can tell if a certain function supports this or not by looking at the bottom, and you can see this little set button down here, and it shows the wheel there. So if you see that, that means that whatever function that you're currently over, whichever item on the iMenu you're currently over, it supports using the dials that way, and it's a much, much faster way. So in some cases, it doesn't, like focus tracking with lock on, that's just going to go to the menu, that doesn't really do it. The next one though, metering does, so I can just roll my back dial here, and I can very quickly select which metering mode I want. Focus shift shooting, that's just going to go to the menu, so it's not, but you can see anything that supports it has that little set option right there, and I can go back and forth and change the stuff very, very easily with the dials, and then just a half press gets me back to shooting. So it seems minor, but it's one of those things that once you try it, you go, oh yeah, that is much faster. I hope that helps. Stop holding your buttons. Okay, this next one is actually a menu item, but it creates a shortcut for you for any of the buttons that you have to press and turn. If you've noticed throughout the video, we've been doing things like pressing the ISO button and holding it down as we turned some of these other buttons here, or the focus mode button when we were resizing our custom wide areas. What if you didn't have to hold those buttons down? There's a way. Let me show you. So we're going to go to the menu, and we're going to go down to controls in the custom shooting menu. That is the F menu there. We're going to go into that menu, and we're going to go down to release button to use dial. So what this does is when you turn that on, it means that you can just press the button once and release it. So if I want to change my ISO, watch this. I press the button, and if you notice, my ISO stays yellow. So I can toggle with my front button on and off, auto ISO, or I can change the ISO by rolling the back button. And if you notice, my finger is nowhere near that ISO button. When I'm done, I either press the ISO button again or just give a half press. Now I will warn you, that this takes a little bit of getting used to. However, once you get used to it, you just don't ever want to go back to the other way of doing it. So I highly recommend you give it a try. It works with ISO, it works with exposure compensation. If you have a button set like we do for focus mode here, you can press that, and if you notice, my fingers are off of it, but I have AFC and W-C2, both of those are highlighted right there. So I can change my AF modes and my AF areas, and get this, as long as that is yellow like that, remember I haven't gotten out of it, I haven't half pressed that, and I haven't pressed the other button again, I can also change the size of my wide AF area there in those custom AF areas. Again, I'm not pressing and holding anything to do it. I think that is much easier, and when I'm ready to shoot again, just give a half press and I'm back. So again, I do warn you, it will take a little getting used to because you're probably in the habit of pressing and holding, and what's going to happen is you'll press it, you'll hold it, and you'll do the operation, and then you'll turn a dial or something and it'll keep adjusting it. So just keep in mind that you've done this little adjustment here, but man, once you get used to it, you'll never go back. Manual focus alert. Okay, so one of the great things with our Nikon lenses is that we can grab the focus ring and we can go ahead and manually focus the lens when we want to. That is super, super handy. The problem is it's a little bit sensitive, and sometimes, especially if you're like in a vehicle or if you're in an awkward position, you might accidentally bump this and throw yourself into manual focus override mode. Now, if you really throw it out of focus, probably not a big deal, right? Not the end of the world. But what happens if you throw it just a little bit out of focus? Well, even if you're pressing your AF on button or half pressing here, if you touch that, autofocus stops and you're going to get out of focus pictures. So what I do is I turn on focus peaking so that, and I turn it all the way up, and I have it on all the time. So if I accidentally touch that, I'll realize I'm out of focus. Let me show you how it works. First, we're going to go to the custom setting menu all the way up to focus. And we have our focus peaking options down here. And you can put this on the I menu as well if this is kind of a hassle for you to do it here. So I'm going to turn it on, as you can see. Focus peaking sensitivity, I'm going to set that all the way up to 3 for high sensitivity. And just pick whichever color is going to be the most obvious to you. I pick red. Okay, so let me show you how this works. So I'm going to focus on the Z6, and you can see I've got a focus lock on it right now. Now, if I accidentally touch that manual focus button, look what happens now. I am still pressing AF on, but you can see it is no longer focusing. I've accidentally gone into manual focus override mode. However, focus peaking is turned on. So I can see in my viewfinder instantly that I've made a pretty big mistake. And then I know to release the AF on button and press it again. So again, just look, it doesn't take hardly any kind of touch on that lens to knock it into manual focus override mode. And it's very easy to miss that in the viewfinder. So I have that on as kind of a little alert so that if I do go into manual focus override mode, I see it instantly and I know to release my autofocus, either release my AF on button or let off my half press of the shutter release and re-engage. Fast subject detection access. Okay, so one of the problems we have with Nikon at the moment, hopefully they will correct this, I've been begging them, but we have no dedicated way to shut off subject detection or even cycle through our different subject detection AF areas with a button. We can go into the I menu, we can go into the menu itself, and we can turn this stuff on and off, but it's just not very fast. What if I told you there's a quicker way to do it? And the trick is to use my menu, but in a very special way. So the first thing we're going to do is go to my menu, all the way down here at the bottom. And you're going to want to add the option for AF, MF subject detection options to the top. It's important it's at the top of that menu. If you need to add items, it's just down here, and you can go to the photo shooting menu, and that option is going to be found in the photo shooting menu all the way down right here. And you can see I already have a check mark there because it's already in there. And it says it's already included, but for you, it may not be. And we want to make sure that that is all the way at the top of my menu. If it's not, you can actually rank items right here, and you can move those around. You just select the item. So if I want to put format memory card up there, I can move it up, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to leave it right there. But if you need to move it, that's where you use the rank items option. So anyhow, we want to make sure AF, MF subject detection options are all the way at the top, or just subject detection options. It might vary by camera a little bit here because Nikon changes the phrasing for this on about a weekly basis, it seems like. Every firmware update, it's calling it something different. So that's the first step. The second step is we need to assign a button to access the top item in my menu. So we're going to go to the custom setting menu, controls. I'm going to go to the custom controls shooting. And again, you can use whichever one of these buttons you want. For this example, we're just going to use the FN2 button. That's this one right down over here. But you can use, again, pretty much every button supports this. So use whichever one is convenient for you. So I'm going to give that a click. And we're going to want to select the option called Access Top Item in my menu. If you look at the bar right here, it's about midway down the selection list. So you have to go pretty far down there to find it. But we want to use Access the Top Item in my menu. And now when I press the FN2 button, look what happens. I get the subject detection options, and I can switch from animal to bird or shut it off really, really fast. I want to go back just like this. Very, very quick. Highly recommend it for now. Hopefully Nikon will give us dedicated buttons so that we can cycle through these or at least shut it on and off as needed. But for now, this is a fairly quick way to do it. And again, I want to emphasize you don't necessarily need to have this on the FN2 button. That's some pretty good real estate there. But just make sure it's a button you can access while you're looking in the viewfinder, because that makes it really, really quick. So hopefully that helps. So there you have it, my 10 favorite Nikon shortcuts. And let me know in the comments which ones of these you already knew, which ones are brand new to you, and which ones you think are the most useful. And of course, if you have a suggestion for a Nikon shortcut that you think ought to be maybe in a future video, make sure you leave it in the comments below. I'd love to read it. In addition, remember to check out those ebooks. If you are interested in getting the absolute most from your Nikon camera, head to my site, check those out. You're absolutely gonna love them. And finally, make sure you like and subscribe, and definitely give me a like if you learned something today. I'd really appreciate it, but I'd also love to have you as a subscriber. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.